Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning into the Storytelling Alchemist show here on the Los Angeles Tribune. Everybody, it's going to be a great show tonight. We are going to be talking with Rabbi Dosick about his book, Radical Loving, One God, One World, which you can't see with the green screen, One People. And so, well, I guess you can see it if I put it up there to the camera. Technology is always great, but I'll put images and links into the show description, so you'll be able to find this book and talk about it, and Rabbi Dosick has it right there. So let's just jump right in, because this is honestly such a timely book. I think, especially something I've talked about for years, is that our planet is very divided, and divisiveness to me is one of our biggest illnesses, I think, in the planet. And so what kind of brought you into talking about this? I don't think you wrote this book during what's going on in the last year and a half, from what I understand.
It was actually a little longer than that. It was before COVID. I wrote it afterward because of COVID. But I took a look at the world and the rhetoric that was being thrown around the world and the divisiveness amongst people and nations. And I saw terrible racism and sexism and white supremacy and neo-Nazism and Islamophobia and anti-Semitism and brutal terrorism and fundamentalism and a fear of walking the streets. And I said, we've got to do a lot better than this, not only in this country, but in the whole world, so that we can live together, lest we hate each other so much and divide amongst us so much that we perish together.
Yeah. So the main idea of this book is about bringing people together and doing better, if I'm understanding.
The main idea is oneness. The fact is that we are all one people. We are the children of the one God. We're children of the one universe. And God basically says to us, I love you all. You are all my children. And I don't play favorites. I love you all. So I hope you will love me because I love you. And I hope you'll learn to love each other. It seems to me that the theme song of the world these days is, my God's better than your God. And I'll prove it to you. And if I can't prove it to you, I will terrorize you. And if I don't terrorize you enough, I'll kill you. It's so silly. There's beauty in our diversity. I taught for 17 years at the University of San Diego, which is a private Catholic diocesan university here in San Diego, cleverly named. And one of my closest and dearest friends in the world is a Jesuit priest. Father O'Leary does not want me to be Catholic, and I don't want him to be Jewish. We find beauty in the different approaches and in the diversity. But we know that we're all children of the one God, and we know that God loves us. And so therefore, we have to learn to love each other so that these false and very harmful divisions get healed.
So one of the things that I was thinking, because I think that's beautiful, you and your friend, because I was just like a lot of people raised in a church that said that if you didn't follow this church and these principles, that you were going to die. And they talked about 3 resurrections, that if you didn't follow the last one, you'd be burned into a lake of fire for eternity. And you had to follow this gentleman, Herbert W. Armstrong, and just him only. And he was an apostle of God. And so I think a lot of people share that. Do you think that's one of the reasons why people, have a selfishness, I guess, in them, or have an idea of it's just my way or the highway, or like you mentioned, kill you?
Well, that's what religions have done to us.
Yeah.
We make up religions. We create them. And there's a great deal of beauty and wonder and amazement and success in various pathways from God to God. But we made a terrible, terrible mistake in this world. Judaism came along into a pagan world and said, our scriptures are better than anything that came out of the pagan world. And then Christianity came along and said, our scriptures are better than anything from the pagan world and anything from the Jewish world. Even today, the church calls it replacement theology. And then the Islam came along, and they said the Quran is better than all of those things. And therefore, each time this happened, ours is better, and therefore get rid of the old and just embrace the new. Wrong, wrong, wrong. They're not better. They are a continuation. It is God's continuing revelation to us that's brought at a different time in a different place because of evolving human consciousness. And we learn more and more of the mysteries of the universe are uncovered. We understand more. In biblical times, we didn't need to talk about rocket ships. There's a progression to the world. And wisdom comes in every form and does not belong to any one group. And so there is wisdom from the ancient pagans and from Abraham and Moses and from Jesus and from Muhammad and from all the Native American tribes and all the Eastern religions and Mother Teresa and Dr. King. And there's the teachers of the world belong to all of us. And so we say that our job is to understand the wisdom that comes to us because we are all children of the one God. And we are created in the image of God, not the physical image, of course, but the spiritual image. And so if I look into the mirror, I see not only my human face, but I see the face of God. And if I look into your face, I see the face of God. And if you and I look into every other human face, we see the face of God. Namaste. The divine in me acknowledges the divine in you. The divine in you acknowledges the divine in me. And when we see the face of God, there's only one possible response. See the face of God, and the only possible response is love. Love, love, love. And therefore, if I love God, seeing the face of God, I love you because you are the reflection of the face of God. And so in very practical terms, you walk into a bank and the line is very long and the teller is taking forever and you get frustrated and you get angry. What kind of person is this? Or you walk into the convenience store and the teenage clerk can't make change for a dollar bill without using his little calculator. And you get frustrated and angry. But if you see the face of God in each one of those people, your only response can be love.
Wow. Well, it what Namaste does really spell it out. It reminds me of the Mayan and Lakesh, where they say, "I'm another you," and so I thought that was very similar. But one of the things is that I think is really strong in what you're saying and powerful is that everybody, I found a lot of people are like yelling and screaming at each other, and social media has become almost like an infection of people arguing as opposed to coming together. Yesterday social media went down and I thought it was a wonderful break because it was like one of those things where I thought, wow, people aren't arguing for a second. And to me, that energy builds of anger and that goes out into the universe, or that God or the divineness in you, or that you are a part of, that's not what it was meant to be used for.
What if we could make the life of another human being, the life of every human being, as precious to us as our own? Then if somebody is hungry, I'm hungry. And if somebody is homeless, then I'm homeless. And if somebody is illiterate, then I'm illiterate. And I have to do everything I can to feed the hungry and to clothe the naked and shelter the homeless and educate the illiterate and give hope to those who think that they're hopeless, because they're not. And so there are various ways that we can do that to make the life of another as precious as our own. I'll just give you one example if you have time for a story. When my kids were little, we tried to invoke the teaching of an ancient sage. It said of this ancient sage that every time he went to the marketplace, if he needed a piece of meat, he would buy two, one for himself and one for the hungry in his community. a bunch of vegetables, one for himself, one for the people in his community. So every time we went to the grocery store, we would buy one extra item of non-perishable food. A box of cereal, a box of mac and cheese, a can of tuna fish, a jar of peanut butter. Didn't even take them into the house. Collected them in a brown paper sack, a grocery bag in the trunk of the car. And when we had 2 or 3 bags filled, we took those bags to the local food pantry. So we're in the store one day, and my youngest child, who was then 5 or so, he's pushing 50 by now, but I took a box of cereal off the shelf, and I said to him, honey, how about this for our food gift this week? And his precociousness at 5 said, no. And I said, why not? And he grabbed the cereal out of my hand and put it back on the shelf, and then stood on that moving grocery cart, heart palpitating for me, and grabbed a different box of cereal from the shelf and held it up. He said, this will be our food gift today. I said to him, honey, what's the difference? He said, look, Dad, there are hungry kids out there too. And kids like sugar frosted flakes better than we like Cheerios. In an instant, that 5-year-old taught me to see not the hungry or the homeless or the poor or the needy or the unfortunate. He taught me to see the face of a child whom we might be helping to feed, who likes one kind of cereal better than another kind of cereal. Making the life of another as precious to us as our own, even over a box of cereal.
And such thoughtfulness, just because, and it makes sense too, because it's like you're thinking about the individual as and how precious that person, how much it would make their day.
Right.
Child.
So we all make Thanksgiving baskets, right?
Yeah.
And we put in a turkey and yams and cranberries and so on and so forth. But how about a bottle of sparkling apple cider, or a bag of colorful jelly beans, or a gaily decorated cake? Because if somebody needs a turkey, probably also would love to celebrate with a bottle of sparkling apple cider. I get one for myself. Why shouldn't I get one for you too?
Yeah. Well, it comes down to lifting people up as opposed to
exactly. So we all collect clothes to give away, right? Either out of fashion or because they don't fit anymore, and we give away a pair of pants or a blouse or a skirt or a shirt. But nobody ever thinks to give away a pair of socks. Because if a man needs a pair of pants, he probably needs a pair of socks too. But no one ever gives them away. All right, you don't want to give away your old smelly socks? Stop at the store on the way and pick up a 3-pack of socks and add it to the clothes that you're giving to the local shelter. When we go to a hotel, the hotel doesn't want us to steal the towels or the pillows, but they put out those little bottles of shampoo and conditioner, and we sort of disdain them because we brought our fancy designer shampoo with us. If you take those with you, and the hotel's very happy to have you take it with you, and you give them to the local shelter, that one little bottle is 2 or 3 head washes for somebody who doesn't have any shampoo. It's simple. See the face of God in every other human being and treat the life of another to you as precious to you as your own.
Yeah, and the hotel will throw that away if you don't use it because of germs and bacteria and of their safety protocols and stuff like that. And it's funny, I was a traveling corporate trainer for years, and for my speaking business, and I have bags of that stuff. So that you just gave me a great idea. Never even thought about that. Right. So, and I think, do you think some of that's, we have to be creative, in our thinking, because we don't think outside the box. So
and here's another way to think outside the box. Back in 1996, and your Southern California listeners, watchers will know this, our entire house and everything in it was destroyed in Southern California wildfire. We lost everything. We lost our house and everything we owned. And so this very kind, gentle man, one of the kindest, gentlest, sweetest men I knew, also one of the wealthiest, came to me and said, Rabbi, what's mine is yours. Ask me for anything and it's yours. Well, what was I going to ask? Take me out to dinner, buy me a suit, build me a house? What was I going to ask? And that happens a lot. God forbid there's a tragedy and we say an illness, a death, and we say, anything you need, just call me. Anything you need, just call. And you know what happens? No one ever calls. So we can do something practical. If, again, God forbid there's a death, you say to the mourner, I understand your Uncle Charlie's coming in for the funeral. Give me his plane information. I'll go to the airport and pick him up. Or is your good suit still at the cleaners? I'll go pick it up for you. Or don't worry about the kids tonight. I'll take them out for a movie and pizza. We're finding a practical way to help each other. You know, it says, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, that's a very, very good idea, except we're all individuals. So let's say you, my friend, you're feeling down and you're my friend and I want to help boost you up. So I say to myself, I say, if I were feeling down, what would I like? Well, I'd like tickets to a baseball game. We'd go to the game, we'd have a beer, we'd have a hot dog, we'd have a good time. So I get you tickets to the game and I take you to the game and we get beer and hot dogs in your case, a Dodgers hat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if you don't like baseball? What if you'd rather have tickets to the symphony or to a theater? I have to understand you and know your need before I react to them. Otherwise, I'm just copying myself. I don't want to do that. I want to be there for what you need. There's an old Hasidic story that says the two men are talking and one says, do you love me? Of course I love you. How am I feeling? I don't know. How would I know how you're feeling? If you don't know how I'm feeling, you don't love me.
Because you love people where they're at, know what they need. So what about with, because I know I get this a lot. People say, well, you're not being practical, Jared. The world just can't be like this. It's the way it's always been. You know, how do we overcome those people?
My response is, you're right. You're right. It's the way it's always been. And if we keep up the way it's always been, we will destroy the planet on which we live. We will destroy each other. And we will once again, if we survive at all, we'll fill the cemeteries of our countries with the best of our young people as we fight over a small piece of land or an addition to our treasury or power or prestige for our leader. The answer is, you're right, but we've got to try, because it's no longer one little nation state against another, one person against another, one company against another, one corporation against another, who gets the bigger profit, who gets the bigger land. No, the world is now a tiny little village. And what happens in one place happens to the entire world. The old Zen idea of the flap of a butterfly wing here affects the world over there. But it's true. Smoke belching out of a chimney in Pittsburgh is air that's breathed in Paris. And a plastic bottle that's thrown into the ocean in Alaska is eaten by a dolphin or by a whale who dies on the beaches of Mexico. We are all interconnected. And to think that our temporal power or prestige or wealth, not at all. The Bible says, do not think that the power is in your hands. Not by might nor by power, but by the Spirit of God.
So it's bigger than our own egos and physical. And when we know we're a part of that, you know, that we're one God, you know, part of this, you know, one, you know, we're oneness, and we love ourselves and love others, then it starts coming into balance.
Right, because everything is of the one God. You are, I am, this desk is. Some scientists would call it faster or slower moving molecules, but it's all God. Everything is God. And so we just have to be aware of that. Turn here, turn there, turn up, turn down. there's God. We forget, we lose consciousness about the divinity of our entire being. And when we remember, then we know that we have to act in a godlike way so that we derive the most and the best from life. You know, God who created us knows us intimately, and says, I gave you this set of rules by which to behave. And if you follow these rules, your life will be better, richer, sweeter, more fulfilled, more ennobled. And if you don't, there'll be consequences. And we who don't follow the rules are paying the consequences. And those consequences are seeping into the entire world.
Yeah, because if I'm breaking the rules, then it's affecting all of us. We're all breaking the rules in a sense because we're one.
So then the question becomes, how do we fulfill the common good? Because it's not, well, here it goes like this. America was founded on the concept of e pluribus unum, right? One out of many, one. And so we started out as this melting pot where people could come from everywhere, different countries, different religions, different races, different cultures, different ethos, and we could come together and be one. Not, oneness consciousness does not mean sameness. It means that it's wonderful that we can go to an Italian restaurant and a Greek restaurant and a Thai restaurant and a kosher deli. That's our uniqueness, and we can share all of that. And America used to be a front porch community. By that I mean, well, the baseball playoffs are starting. The highlight of my childhood was 1959 when the White Sox won the pennant in Chicago. And I remember that we all sat on our front stoops of our houses with our little transistor radios. If you're not old enough, you probably won't remember those. And the whole block was cheering when something good happened to the White Sox and groaning when it didn't. Right. So what happened? Somewhere along the line, and I can point to a few of the places, but I don't think we have time probably, but somewhere along the line, instead of being this melting pot, we became a frayed patchwork quilt of special interests. Instead of us, it became me, my needs, my choices. Or not me. I'm not the perpetrator. I'm the victim, and therefore I can behave in any way in my victimhood. And what we have now is this frayed network of special interests. And until we come together for the common good, for the highest good, we will still be in this trouble. The highest good for each of us, for our communities, for our country, and certainly for our planet. So we talked about the chimneys belching smoke in Pittsburgh and affecting the entire world. It's the same thing with how we behave with each other. The book, I finished the book before COVID, and then with COVID, I wrote a afterword. And one of the things I said there was, you can choose individual rights and freedoms, and everybody calls out for individual rights and freedoms. And yet, everybody stops at red lights, because stopping at a red light is for the common good, so you don't get killed or you don't kill anybody else in a car crash. Well, there were two ways to look at, let's say, the reopening of businesses in America. On one hand, people said, we really, really need to open the businesses because the only way I can pay my rent and feed my children is if I make some money from my pizza shop or my nail salon or my barber shop. That was one. The other hand was, America must open the businesses because I have the right, the individual freedom to go to a bar and dance or go to the beach and get a suntan. Well, individual rights and freedoms impinging on the common good. We need to strive for the common good, the highest good, the greatest good.
You bring up a good point. One of the things I thought about during the pandemic is that my perceived rights that I feel that I have could also impinge on your perceived rights in a sense, because one of the other ones was safety for health. People were saying that if we open the businesses, the pandemic is going to spread. The virus is going to spread and it's going to kill more people or get more people sick and that kind of stuff. And then, like you mentioned, I need to be able to have my business open, so I can feed my kids and pay my rent and all that kind of stuff. But so there was, and I remember when Disney World in Orlando opened back up, people were screaming and saying it was too early. But then the people that worked there really needed to work. So in some sense, you mentioned the common good, which I totally agree with. That there was also that my rights are being impeded on by your rights, or your perceived rights, I guess is the better way to put it. And I've always felt that during this time we didn't talk. It was exactly what you said, me. And nobody opened up their hearts enough to say, well, what can we do for the common good? So I think that's what you're getting at.
That's correct. And individual rights, the Supreme Court has said, my individual freedom ends at the tip of your nose. I can put my arm out so far, but if I hit your nose, it's no longer my individual right. And it has said it's not an individual right to yell fire in a crowded theater, because that puts everybody in jeopardy and everybody in danger. So it is a delicate balance. There's no question about it. And I certainly understand the call for individual rights and freedoms. It's one of the great blessings of this country. And if I get on an airplane, even though I've been triple vaccinated and wear a mask, if I get on an airplane and I'm assigned a seat next to someone who has decided not to be vaccinated because of his or her individual freedoms and rights, that person is putting me at jeopardy. I know I've had vaccinations, but there's breakthrough COVID. And why should I be subject to somebody else's choice that may be very dangerous and harmful to me and to everybody else around me?
Yeah. That's definitely a complex conversation right now. I don't necessarily think it has to be. But I think, what do you think that individuals can do to practice or implement the ideas you're speaking about? Because we're talking very globally. What do you think that individuals can do to help, implement the ideas that you're talking about?
See the face of God in every other human being. And the only possible response to seeing the face of God is not anger, not fear, not hatred. The only possible response is love. Deepest love, eternal love, and awesome holiness, which is the partner of radical loving.
Could you talk about that a little bit? Because you talk about awesome holiness, and you said it's the partner of God. But
we sort of touched on it without naming it. It's the here-ness of God.
Okay, gotcha.
The presence, knowing that everywhere we turn is the presence of God, and it is the responsibility to the community, to each and every person who needs our help, who needs to be boosted up. Sometimes we Jews the world over, just a few weeks ago, finished observing Yom Kippur, and on the Day of Atonement. And on Yom Kippur, we read a passage from the prophet Isaiah, 700 before the Common Era. So a long time ago. And Isaiah says, your fasting and your rituals and your flopping your chest mean nothing to me, says God, unless you feed the hungry and clothe the naked and shelter the homeless. It is the job of every human being. I always like those bumper stickers that say a random act of kindness. Very nice. Random act of kindness. I'll pay in the Starbucks line. I'll pay for the guy behind me. No. A random act of kindness is nice. If you want to do it, go ahead. But we have an obligation, a responsibility for acts of kindness one to another. One human being responsible for the goodness and the life of another.
Wonderful. And everybody, it's the book is Radical Loving, One God, One World, One People. I'm assuming they can find it on Amazon.
It's at Amazon. The website is radicallovingbook.com. And I have to say that we all come to God in different ways. One of the ways that I come to God, one of the most important ways to me is through chant. And so we took the ideas in this book and we made up 21 chants. And each one comes into our subconscious and bubbles up into our consciousness, because chant has that power. And so we made what they used to call a CD. It's an album, I guess. And it has all these chants in it, and you can find it on the website, where you can, I think, I'm not sure because I don't know all the technical stuff, I think you can purchase a download, or you can buy a hard copy CD if anybody still has a CD player. So that helps. That helps, because I found myself over the years just subconsciously, just some sort of chant bubbles up in my beat. I'm driving, or I'm sitting at my desk, or I'm eating in a restaurant, and some chant just bubbles up. And I say to myself, what are the words of that chant? And why have they come to me at this particular moment? And there's always a reason. There's always a reason that a particular chant melody or the words that go with it bubble up just when those words, just when that chant is needed in a person's life.
That's awesome. So they'll find that at the website, and everybody, that link for the website, radicallovingbook.com,
Correct.
will be in the description of the show as well. So you'll be able to get the link there and go get the book and check out the CD and everything. And there's a lot. You've also written 9 other books, so I'm sure that there's links there as well.
They're all there on Amazon. Whatever you'd like to explore, I probably wrote about it.
And everybody, there's some great people coming up on the show here in the next few weeks. Haven't got the date scheduled, but Dr. Amit Goswami is going to be coming on. A guy named RJ Spina is going to be coming on. So lots of great content. And everybody, thanks for tuning in to the Storytelling Alchemist show. Much love, everybody.
Thanks for having me.